No more sports ball
but
right now.
To your point of the calendar like being disrupted. Oh, I hear myself talking to myself in the ears. There we go. To your point of the calendar being disrupted, like I think we got to pull another 12 months before we're kind of even back to the calendar progressing like it normally does, right? Because the tail, like COVID is still impacting the scheduling. And I mean, hockey's on a shortened season, which I think is kind of cool to see a shortened season format. I think it maybe even works better. Maybe hockey should consider shortening it always. I hate the fact that they've changed all the conferences, right? So like you play the same teams like 8 times. It's super annoying, but I do kind of like how some of these seasons are a little shorter. They're a little easier to follow, and maybe it makes for some better playoffs kind of experience when people are healthy and teams are not as worn down.
It sounds like an esports fan describing that they really enjoy the esports like scheduling of all of the traditional sports over there. Mitch, is that what you're talking about? Yeah, we like
Maybe.
that fast-paced moving of the tournament bracket. We want 8 hours a day of content. Just pump that into me as fast as you can give it for that week, and then I'll be done for about a month, and I'm ready for some more. Which, it feels like that was kind of how all of the traditional athletic associations have caught up over the course of 2020 to now 2021, and are wrapping up some of the seasons that were modified and or adjusted to get those bubbles in place. And it's interesting to think of that bubble being one of those pieces of structure now that's required for these organizations to keep moving these conferences forward in activity. And like the NFL is about to wrap up this weekend, so like that bubble's about to go away, and they'll be able to go and return to like some sort of life, right?
I think to call the NFL a bubble is a little what's the word I'm looking for? Generous, right? I think that, I don't know. It's not like the hockey bubble that happened or the NBA bubble that happened.
Yeah.
But I do think it's really cool that we all know what bubbles are, and it's like a thing, right? And even esports organizers, right? We okay, we're gonna do an event. Maybe we got to do a bubble. Like, yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah, it's amazing how far everyone will go to modify their everyday in order to do what they really enjoy, to provide that content. I mean, to live up to their contracts and be able to make all that money is also half of that for those players. But to be able to do what they love and they've spent their lives building towards, there's a lot of sacrifice that goes into that that's not normal. So I wonder how that has affected them as athletes and as content creators in their own rights to be able to go out and do what they do best. I look forward to seeing what like the dissipation of all these look like in the off season now.
Yeah, long live the no crowd travel game, says Captain Cool in the chat. I disagree. I miss the real atmosphere of sports games. I hate this artificial atmosphere where the operator in the home stands is just choosing the intensity level, and we're cheering for this or we're not booing for this. And I mean, I've watched enough hockey to know that anytime they call a penalty against the home team, you boo as loud as you can, right? You just kind of, it misses that rage, that fire. And I just can't wait till we get back to having real people in the stands. And I'm excited that the NFL season has been able to sort of like crescendo into more and more people being able to just be in the stands. And if you thought it was hard to go to the Super Bowl in a normal year, imagine trying to go to this year's Super Bowl.
Man, well, I mean, didn't they give all the tickets away to frontline workers? Is what the statement was, like vaccinated frontline workers.
I think that was the plan. I hadn't heard otherwise. So.
It was like a specific area. I don't know how like far-reaching it was, but when I remember hearing about it, I had this instant thought of, who's going to be taking care of all of the currently sick people if all of them got access to the Super Bowl that day?
Sorry. I know that you're not feeling too good over there. You need your shots and stuff, but I gotta go to the Super Bowl. So yeah,
we'd have Dr. Mitch over there if Aaron Rodgers was playing this weekend. Gotta go watch his boy throw that pigskin around.
Okay. All right, we're good.
I'm glad you had your moment.
Had to fight back it here.
Okay.
What do you say we start the show? On that somber note. I mean, welcome to the show, everyone. You might have noticed something. You might have noticed that now it officially sounds like we are sponsored by Blue Microphone, because thank you to our wonderful sponsor, Blue Microphone. My beautiful microphone has arrived now in full 360 color of my voice. I am super pumped. How do I sound over there? Are we dialed in, Gizmo? Am I coming in nice and loud?
You sound smooth as butter.
Hey, I love this thing. Super pumped about this. So welcome to Theorycrafting episode. What is it? Season 2, episode 3. I'm not even sure what episode we're on anymore. But it's the first week of February. It's a new month. That means we got a new theme for the month. Kyle, what is our theme for the next 30 days?
Content and you.
Ooh, content. We're going to be talking about content formats, how to make better content that's in the marketplace. And tonight, we're going to be talking a little Clubhouse. We're going to be talking a little Netflix, maybe a little Harry Potter. But really, we're just going to talk about content, how to network in a pandemic. And we're going to talk about Clubhouse for a bit, because I know we both got invited recently. Been hanging out, pushing some buttons, and even heard Papa Elon give a couple talks this week. So we want to digest what we heard and banter about that. So with that, let's get into the show. Thank you again to our sponsors, Blue Microphone and Aver Media. Couldn't do this without you. We appreciate the support. Now let's get on to the show, as they would say.
So Clubhouse. I don't know if everyone is aware of what this is. I've been asking around in my personal social circles, and there's some people that are aware, and there's some people that aren't aware. Most of my gaming friends are the ones that are aware. My more close to home family friends are the ones that are not aware. But I see this as like a next social movement in a lot of ways. I don't know what your thoughts are on this thing, Mitch, but your initial feedback.
Really interesting. Pretty simple, right? The concept is you sign up for the app and you join a room, and it's some people just having a conversation, and you're just allowed to listen in on the conversation. So it's kind of like a podcasting medium, which is really interesting. So my first impressions are my first impression was there's no way that's going to hold my attention. I'm going to log in. I'm never going to go back. And I was actually surprised, because I have found my way into some conversations in rooms that I have actually found to be really interesting. So impressed, maybe more than I thought I would be. What about you?
I think I enjoy it, and we'll talk about this a little bit more as we discuss it, but it fills a void right now that I have. I've had the opportunity to jump into a couple rooms. I talked to a buddy who I haven't spoken to in over 2 years. Right as I got the app, we sat and chatted for about 15 minutes, nice to catch up. But then I followed him into a different room later that night and was able to discuss some of the things that I enjoy talking about. With some people that are really curious as to what 2021 is going to hold as far as the future of content, is what we were actually discussing, oddly enough. They were photographers, video editors, a lot of different creative minds that I'm used to working with on a regular basis. It was interesting to hear their thoughts and the outside perspective of where our world is as gaming, because we are such a big force nowadays that even the people that I don't expect to talk about gaming do. So it was cool to get different perspectives in this room of less than 20 people, but he was just adding everybody to the stage so they could talk. And being able to express some of those thoughts was cool to get off of my chest and hear some feedback about them as well. On the reverse of that, not talking in a room, just hanging out, listening to a room, I found myself on Sunday morning just listening to a room for a better part of 2 hours. It was hundreds and hundreds of people in this room this time, and there was probably a dozen people up talking, but it was just a topic that I was interested in, and it happened to be a couple people just rotating through, getting up there, expressing their thoughts, asking some questions, letting the people that are there leading the conversation get some of their thoughts in on it as well, and their opinions on what they should be doing and or looking towards for resources. It felt like a panel that I would go to at one of the conventions that I host or that I love attending throughout the year. And I haven't been to a panel in forever. So this has been fantastic to get a little bit of that. I want live interactive conversation and or engagement with people rather than a recorded discussion. I want to be able to get involved with this. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it's incredibly interactive, and I think that's kind of why it works in some regard. That, and they've been really clever about how they've promoted it and rolled it out, right? It's like you have to know someone to invite you, and then there's only so many invitations, and it started with a really small number of people, and it's kind of got this viral network effect going on, right? Because once you're in, then your phone's just blowing up with, oh, so-and-so's on Clubhouse, so-and-so's in a room, like, hey, do you want to come welcome so-and-so to Clubhouse? Oh, hey, Kyle just jumped into this room, do you want to go hang out with them? It's like, holy cow, right? So I understand it's important to get the network effects going and drive the traffic, but it is a little aggressive on the notifications.
Yeah, I think we were warned of that last week with Lee, right?
I was like, well, I don't remember exactly what Lee said, but one of the sentiments was too many notifications, which, there's a lot of notifications. It's a lot, but to the point of, it's one thing to listen to a pre-recorded podcast and just follow along, and that's interesting, right? But here you can literally join the conversation, and it's literally happening live. It's not recorded. And in this time where we're so starved for events, it's really cool to just think that you can hop into a room and practice public speaking, right? Even if it's 5 or 10 people, you can just get up there and practice making a point and being quiet, or you can just listen, right? Or, you can get in a room with a friend you haven't talked to in 10 years, and it's kind of just a really cool dynamic. And it's like Discord in a lot of ways, right? But it's a social network. Discord is a social network as well in a lot of regards, but very fascinating.
It feels different than Discord. It feels different than a Twitter. There's no posting of just words. The most words you ever see is when you're looking at someone's organization or association or club that you're trying to join, and they need a wall of text describing who they are, but that's it. That's really the most words you ever see. And the only way that you can post is essentially starting a room. So you have to be in that room in order to make that spread. So it feels organic, but it also feels active. And that active part of it is, I think, what keeps me coming back. Because looking at Twitter, looking at Discord even, most of it's passive. Unless I'm in a discussion in a server with people that most of the time I know is the limiting factor, I don't really get that active engagement. So being active in these rooms and listening as if you have that live opportunity to engage with that person and ask that question when you have it pop into your head. Because if someone's watching our podcast on the VOD and they have a question, they post in the comment, and that's the most engagement that they'll get from us, is if we respond, or maybe we answer it next time on the next podcast. But that's a long time. There's a gap between there that really loses that meaning in answering that question in the moment and connecting those dots for whoever it may be that has that question. And Clubhouse gets me to engage that way because of the incentive of that active engagement there.
Yeah, it's anytime a new vehicle for producing content or spreading your message or networking or meeting people comes out, it's always worth to dabble and try, right? Try it out. I'm a big fan of experimenting on platforms and trying new things with content and format and all those kinds of things. And anytime something like this comes out, I was definitely skeptical, and I love podcasts. I was kind of reflecting on podcasts as just like a medium. It's been still growing in popularity, but like even 5-10 years ago, podcasting was kind of a fringe niche thing. Like it wasn't huge, and today it feels huge, but I think like it's not even as big as it's going to be, right? It's becoming more mainstream. So the fact that like, now we have like a new form of podcast, it's a live show, a live studio audience. You can go be in the studio audience, and you can literally raise your hand and get your point across, but you don't even have to leave your house, right? So it's like, it's the 21st century like talk show, I guess, I don't know, or like the live sitcom, if you will, in a lot of ways. And I don't know, I guess the next step is we're going to plug in some VR headsets, and maybe like that's it, right? We go into a Clubhouse room, throw your Oculus on, boom, now we're in the Matrix.
I want to have a Clubhouse that actually represents a problem that we were talking about earlier. So NFL stadiums, give them a Clubhouse, put all the fans in there, and just let them scream and pump that into the stadiums. Yes, this is the 2021 that you're looking for, Mitch. The fan engagement, the fan noise. You want that live feel without being there? Come in the Clubhouse and scream your heart out when touchdowns and things happen. You want to tell that ref how dumb they are? Let them hear it.
It can't be as bad as what they've like. Did you remember in the NFL draft, or actually I'm sure they've done it through NFL games, where they pull up like the Zoom calls with the fans, and they're like in their living room, and they're like, yeah, and they're like, let's go, right?
Yeah.
And I'll never forget when I think it was when the Cleveland Browns were drafting, or it was one of those franchises, maybe it was the Bengals. They're kind of, one of those down on their luck franchises. the video wall had 16 slots for fans, and there was only like 13 of them full, right? And there's a couple that. And it's like, you couldn't find 16 people, Fox? You couldn't hire a couple interns just to throw their pictures up there and put a jersey on? Like, funny. So, I don't know. It's a side tangent. I was just thinking about that.
If I would have known, I would have gone in my Seahawks jersey and joined that Zoom call and been there ready to cheer them on.
I know, right? I know, right? But so were you? One thing that is very surprising to me. So Elon Musk a couple nights ago tweeted out that he was going to be live on Clubhouse at 10 o'clock or whatever time it was. It's like, cool, this is exciting. I could go like listen to Elon talk, right? Live. I'm super pumped about it just because it was gonna be interesting. And 10 o'clock hits and I open up the app and I see the room and I click on it and boom, full. And I was just like, wow. I was not expecting like a hard cap on the number of people that could join a room. I thought maybe that it would be like a special featured room or something where anybody can join, right? So then I found a restream room. I just thought that was weird. Like, what did you get into the room, or how did you listen to that?
I didn't get into the room. Sadly, I was on before, and I didn't realize that the room was already up, because most of the time, the room will pop up as the conversation is starting. So I didn't realize who was hosting it. I didn't do enough research to realize that I was looking at the actual room before it was full, before he was coming on. And after he came on, the room was instantly full. There was no way to get into it, and it stayed full the entire night. But the restream rooms are really cool. I don't know exactly what people were doing to make that happen, but the ability to restream a room is an ideal concept. But I do think they lost out on an opportunity to see what it would be like to have like a critical mass in a server there, and just see what it's like to have 10,000+. And that may have been their hardware cap was somewhere around that 5.8, and they never thought they were really going to push it until Elon shows up, and holy shit, every fucking Clubhouse user is online at the same time. I don't think they were ready for that, but it was cool. It was a social phenomenon moment of having him come on and talk, because that man's brain just works different. Social eloquence is something to be desired, which makes me feel good about myself sometimes, but it's just the way that his brain works, that listening to him talk about memes in 1 second and then solving the problems of COVID vaccine distribution another, this man is a genius. So it was pretty cool to listen to him in that more intimate setting.
It reminds me of one of the ways that I explain Twitch to people that don't know what gaming is, don't know what Twitch is it's like, well, can you imagine if like you got to watch Michael Jordan take jump shots in the gym, like on his free time? Like, how cool would that be, right? This is kind of like, imagine being able to just have a conversation with Michael Jordan just because you happen to like log into a platform at the right time, right? I think that's why this is really cool, is that simple idea of just being able to be in the same virtual room as Elon, and in theory being able to ask him a question, right? And actually, you could actually have a dialogue with him. He could respond to you, you could engage back, right? It's just really, really cool. I know that technically probably challenging to make rooms unlimited size, right? Because then you have 100,000 Yahoos in there, and it's like, okay, only certain people can be allowed to talk and all these things, right? Which is probably for the better. But yeah, I wonder how they actually do the restream rooms too. I was thinking about that. Do you have any idea how you might restream a Clubhouse room? How'd you like?
I don't know if they have multiple accounts and they were like holding up a device to another one and just letting it listen essentially, and like joining another room and having just one be the speaker and one be the receiver, or if they were able to use their account in both rooms as a receiver and a broadcaster. I'm not sure what that looks like. I've never hosted a room myself in that regard, but you may be able to just embed your user there, and that may be the way that they always have an infinitely expanding, kind of like their marketing, an infinitely expanding amount of rooms to be able to at least listen to a larger topic. You don't get that same engagement because you're one step removed in a different room, but you can at least listen to some of these bigger topics.
So maybe we should take this podcast to the next level.
Ooh.
And try out some Clubhouse one of these days, huh? What do you think? Should we try a podcast on Clubhouse this month?
I think I'd enjoy that. I think we can actually do that. We just set up our phones and chat. I mean, we're doing the same thing right now. There's no video, but it could pick up our voice the same way. I wonder if there's a way to do it from the computer.
Ooh, I wonder. I don't know.
Gotta
In
do
the
some
spirit
research.
of content and you and making better content, we might as well experiment with some new content this month. So, I guess I just signed us up for that. So look for the Clubhouse pod 2 weeks from now. There we go.
Yep, we'll be live on Clubhouse after Valentine's Day, I think is what you just signed us up for. The week after Valentine's Day.
This week after Valentine's Day, yeah, the week after Valentine's Day. So what was a couple things Elon talked about that you thought were interesting? Like what? I don't know. I was kind of in and out. I think you were in there a little bit more than me. So
well, it was hard because
what did he talk about that really resonated or what was interesting?
Oh, there was something that I followed the next day as well, and it sounded like the president actually took Elon's advice on how to speed up the distribution of COVID vaccines. He's like, remove the barriers, just let people have it, send it to the next CVS, and let them start distributing from there. Because we're wasting vaccines, we're wasting time. If you get them to the distribution point, people will come, is the model that he was essentially preaching. And then the next day, it sounds like the Biden administration is moving forward with more of a get it to the CVSs, get it to wherever it can be distributed model. And to think that this guy can have that big of an impact, he even called himself out on it, being careful that if he references, game stocks, or if he was referencing cryptocurrency and those kinds of things, that he can actually move the needle. He has enough of a following and enough clout to move the needle, so he has to be careful about what he says. But when it comes to changing policies or helping solve problems that most people would look at with a fairly conventional solution to, and he's like, no, just do it this way. You're like, why didn't we think of that to begin with, or why has it been so difficult to get there? And maybe that influenced it, maybe it didn't. Maybe they were just having the same ideas around the same time and it just popped out. But I thought that was pretty coincidental, if nothing else.
I'm gonna have a hard time giving Elon full credit for that, but I'll give him a little bit. Sure, why not?
I mean,
why not?
Look at what he did to Doge, making that needle move.
Don't buy Dogecoin, people. Don't do it. This is not financial advice again, but
what was it? 5 cents?
Who cares? It's a meme coin. There's no use case behind it. Like the whole point of it is it's a joke, right? If you're gonna sink your money in cryptocurrency, like you'd go get on that $1,500 ether because we might never see it again, right?
Yep.
Oh my gosh, buddy.
Speaking of crypto, that's one of the things that there's actually a lot of resources on Clubhouse right now.
Oh really?
Yeah, a lot of them. And I will say this about Clubhouse: it almost feels like one of those really shady back alleys that you're like, oh, how did I end up in Nocturne Alley? I thought I was in Diagon Alley, but I'm in Nocturne now. How did I make that wrong turn and the wrong flu powder stopped?
It's all spooky in here. Oh
yeah, the flu network spit me out in the wrong fucking fireplace. So I do feel like I end up in a couple areas where I'm like, oh, these are some really weird rooms that I feel like someone's going to try and sell me something and steal my identity in there. But on the reverse of that, there's a lot of diverse rooms, from cryptocurrency to content creating and your specific version of it to career advice and people doing pitch meetings. There's some people that just sit in Clubhouse every day and wait for people to come pitch them things so that they can fund it. Angel investors will just sit in there and you can bring your idea and they'll fund you. I've heard a couple success stories that way. Yeah, it's incredible to have that kind of direct access. So what's like the coolest thing that you've heard in some of your times in Clubhouse? Are there any topics or like specific rooms you've joined with an interest of yours to go and explore specifically?
So I've actually have not explored as much. I think the coolest quote unquote moments have been being in rooms with people I know that I haven't talked to much, right? Just that kind of that like personal networking, rapport building, and like I got into a room with my cousin, which was cool. I see her every so often, like once a year kind of deal. So that's for me, it's like what's been really cool. But I've also like found the discoverability to be a little confusing. Like it's almost hard to find things that I want, right? Like it's just the interface for whatever reason when sometimes I don't know what I want, right? I don't know exactly what topic to like go look through. And I have found like the interface, the UI to be a little, I don't want to say intimidating, but challenging for whatever reason in my brain. And I don't know, I need to do a little bit more discovery there. I have not really jumped into some rooms, and although I did join, I believe it was the Metaverse, right? Is that the one you told me about? Or
Yep.
Yeah, you told me about the room called the Metaverse, which I joined that. I haven't found any talks there yet, but I'm stoked to check that out.
That was one of my ones that I really enjoyed. My buddy Darlington, CEO of Monster Cat, has been hanging out and hosting some of these rooms with a guy named Ryan Gill. And they've been talking about the metaverse and the overarching concept around the metaverse and how different industries could be able to apply what they do to this new frontier of stay-at-home digital landscape that we're out whacking away into the vines with machetes right now, trying to trudge our paths and to find something that people enjoy and want to be a part of. So it was cool to hear their input, because I know where my direction is and what I'm doing right now with my career field to try and push into that direction, but hearing how others in different career fields are also moving into that space. I got to listen to a gentleman that is working in wine on
cool.
someplace remote in Canada. And they're like a tourist town, and normally they have a lot of people that come through and they could do wine every tourist season, but now they're doing some local stuff for people there and then sending out their wine bottles in kits and then linking them to their YouTube channel so they can actually go through the course with them and sample the different bottles and get a little bit of information about what they're doing there. And they want to take that one step further to where they can be in the same space and kind of have their own cellar design in this VR experience where you could be drinking wine in VR essentially, which, you know, in theory sounds a little bit dangerous, but if it can be done right, that'd be kind of cool to be able to be there in person with your sommelier and like have them talk to you in VR while you have someone helping you drink the wine and all that kind of stuff. A different level of immersion to bring you to that moment of, I'm in a wine cellar drinking wine at this nice winery versus sitting in my living room drinking this bottle of $75 wine so I can feel fancy in my sweatpants.
I love that idea of like getting shipped a wine kit and then having like an interactive tasting learning session. I've never done I've never actually done any sort of wine tasting classes, right? Have you ever done that? It's kind of side tangent, but because I can smell a beer or drink or smell a wine and be like, oh yeah, it's kind of fruity and hoppy, right? But beyond that, it's like, oh yeah, it says orange peels dancing with mint and thyme wrapped in cinnamon on my palate. It's like, nah, I can't do that shit. Like, have you ever done any of those?
I have. There's one of my favorite little towns in Washington by the name of Leavenworth, and it's a Bavarian town that I grew up going to, and they had all these cool knick-knack shops and toy stores and just crazy things. Now every single store has a wine shop in it because the east side of the mountains has popped up as like the next Napa Valley, and that's the closest stop to the west side, which is the major cities. So all the wineries have some sort of tasting room there now. So I've gone through and done the tour, and you end up a little bit tipsy by the time you get through it. But the one that always caught me by surprise was the taste of leather. I'm supposed to be tasting leather? Like, this is not just like an error, or like, did you put this in a flagon and had it on the back of a horse while it was trotting around for a day or two? Like, are we living in the 1700s, maybe even earlier than that? Maybe this is 600 AD. Like,
King requires his flagon.
Yeah, but like the taste of leather was the weirdest one for me out of a wine tasting experience.
Wow, that's a real thing. The taste of leather. They actually tell you, and you get notes of leather in this, and it's wow.
It was good. I think it was even a Merlot. It was some sort of red for sure, but I think it was a Merlot, something or a Malbec, one of the two.
Malbecs are good.
Malbecs are tasty. They're usually expensive though.
Huh. I'm sure.
We've deteriorated to wine. So if you haven't been here before, this is the show where Mitch and I discuss the different types of wine. So I'm glad you could join us. Pick up your glass and drink a little bit of that, tasty stuff.
when you're drinking $2 Chuck, they're all the same price.
Get that from the grocery store. I've had a lot of fun exploring these different topics on Clubhouse, and what it feels like for me in 2020, 2021, I mean, I haven't networked in almost a year on a pretty open social level. There's a couple different things you go to here and there, but it feels so clunky to try and socialize with anyone on a meaningful level and connect. But I've really enjoyed being able to network in a way that you feel like you're a part of some of these smaller, 7 to 8 person just conversations. And you get to have that energy. It feels healthy.
Yeah, the only thing I've come close to Clubhouse as far as a networking experience is concerned that I feel like has actually worked for me is There's like a weekly games industry gathering that occurs. It like occurs on Discord and Zoom, and it's been going on for a year. And kind of like every week, the idea is you all show up, and then like a bunch of breakout rooms are made, and like so basically, if you have 50 people there, there's like 10 rooms of 5, and then those 5 rooms talk for 20 minutes, and then everyone goes back, and then everyone's separated again, right? And so it's like this sort of like organic like these rooms form, and eventually if you show up enough time, then you start to meet everybody, and then it's like we're all friends, right? So Clubhouse is a similar concept, right? You jump in these smaller rooms and you can actually network with people and talk to people. It just maybe isn't like the same group of people all the time, right? And I think that I can see myself finding a lot of the same value that I find in these like weekly kind of games industry Discord calls. Like I can see the same exact value in jumping in Clubhouse, and for the same reason, right? Like a weekly networking session. Or heck, like I love this idea of I'm a venture capitalist, come pitch me. And just come pitch me. I love that. It's super cool. I actually, if you've seen any of those rooms, you gotta let me know, because I want to jump in there and just listen.
Yeah, I saw a couple the other day. Some of them were about like refining your pitch, and they were VCs that were just like helping people refine. But it seems like they do something like that weekly right now from what I was looking at. So if I see it, I'll send it over to you. But as far as some of the different... Oh shoot, I had a thought process here and it's now gone. Nope. Move it on. We'll make this a rough segue.
Have you noticed there's a lot of esports content and esports activity on Clubhouse? I feel maybe it's just because that's the industry we're in and that's the network I'm exposed to, is what people are talking about. But I have noticed a lot of energy or something in Clubhouse in particular within the esports space. Have you picked up on that as well?
Yeah, I definitely have. The esports industry is actually one of the bigger industries that I've noticed floating around Clubhouse as well. Because there's a couple like cutting edge content creators and those kinds of people that I think are always hyper relevant, trying to continue to be on that cutting edge. But as far as industries and that growth go, esports is one of those for sure. Those metaverse talks are another one. Cryptocurrency is another one. I feel like there's quite a bit of that early adopter built into the user base currently of Clubhouse, just because it's in that state and it's inherently collected a lot of early adopters. But we happen to be the people that are trudging forward in all of our individual industries as well. So there, at least in my social circles, it has led me to finding more esports things. This also goes back to my earlier comment of Nocturne Alley and kind of ending up in a couple conversations where you can see like, oh, you're an esports consultant on LinkedIn, aren't you? Oh, yeah, you are. Okay, I'm leaving this room. Goodbye. So those sales pitches are still out there, and there's a lot of people that I don't know if you've ever been in one of those panels and you have that person that stands up and they're like asking that blatant question about how can I directly myself use me and my skill that I have, not skill that I have, to make money off S sports. Okay.
I used to do this all the time. I'd go to esports conferences, and at the time I worked for a data company, and I'd go to the panels for people speaking at either brands or teams that we wanted to work with, and they'd get to the Q&A and I'd raise my hand, or I'd go to the microphone and I'd be like, so yes, you're a sponsorship manager, blah, blah, blah. So I'm curious, like, how do you think about measuring the effectiveness of your sponsorships, right? I'm just really curious, what tools do you use? Like, what metrics really matter to you, right? And just throwing like such a loaded question at them. It's like, yes, here's the data guy with a data product that wants to sell me a data thing, asking me about data.
I'm looking out for you afterwards, because I'm not going to want to talk to you after the end of this panel. It's kind of how I always felt about myself whenever I would ask those similar questions, because I think that's where my brain was going earlier with how Clubhouse works so well as that networking tool. It offers you that opportunity every single time to be in that same position of, you can ask that question, you can hang out and chat with them after the room closes, you can do all of those things that you could at that live panel, and you can get out there and you can start networking in ways that are impossible right now. Because when I started in this pursuit of getting into the industry in 2013-ish, I went to those things. I did those things. I was that person that I make myself cringe looking at now, because I just know how silly I looked at the time, looking back on myself now. But it's those moments that built me up to where I am now.
You're being hard on yourself, dude. Like everyone, you can't look down on yourself like that for hustling and trying to put yourself out there and get your, like, so many people are so scared to like walk up to somebody and say, hi, I'm so and so, nice to meet you, like I'd like to add value to your life.
Yep.
Right. So I think the fact that you did it and you're sitting here is like, don't shit on yourself, Kyle. Come on, man.
Thank you, Mitch. It is a bit of a tricky thing nowadays to be able to get that time in, to be able to put yourself in front of people and for them to remember your name. It takes a lot more than it used to, and I really think that if anyone's looking to get into the industry, like Mitch said, there's a lot of esports going on, there's a lot of buzz, and I see new people jumping in every day that are movers and shakers in this business. The people that I go to when it's time to make deals and make things happen, that's all happening on Clubhouse right now. So if you are looking to get into the space and to get your time talking, saying the stupid things, getting them out of the way, understanding that we all make mistakes as we grow through this networking process to get to where we're headed, Clubhouse is exactly what you need to be looking for. So if you have your friends that are on there, make sure you get those invites, because it is invite only right now, and only iOS, sadly. But I highly recommend it if you are looking to make those moves and have yourself be known in the industry, even though you haven't had the chance to be in front of people face to face. This is a great way to get those reps. Yeah,
you got to get the reps, and at the end of the day, it only takes one person. You just need one person to give you a shot. That's it. You just need one person, right? And then you do a good job and you build that into 2 people and 3 people, but you just got to meet one person. And I meet people all the time. Go to the grocery store, you'll meet a person, right? Like it's really not that hard, right? It's one person. But dude, this does pose an interesting question. I was actually just kind of thinking about this. You're alluding to how like important this tool might be, and like might be a place to spend your time, right? And time and attention is just so distracted and valuable in these days. And I'm thinking like, okay, where is my time to go hang out in Clubhouse going to come from? What bucket is it going to come from, right? It's not going to come from the work bucket, although maybe it could, because I could, like, it's networking, right? It's probably not coming from the league bucket, and it's definitely not coming from the sleep bucket, because we've already taxed that bucket enough. So I wonder if maybe it kind of starts to come from like that, like free time, Netflix binging time, right? Because it almost seems like this content could be subsuming with like your Netflix time.
Absolutely. I think this does overlap a lot with just that mindless task overlap. So if you're used to just streaming anything, podcasts, a show in the background, movies, Twitch streams, if you're not looking to be active, you can still consume a lot of great raw content in a it's unrefined, and you got to sift through a lot of it. But when you find those nuggets, they're so great because it is all genuine, is the way that I would put that. It's all in the moment and genuine. Unlike the stuff that we consume day after day after day that's just like, yay, you like flashy lights? Watch this. New show. New show.
But those new shows are amazing, man. You saw Mandalorian, right? Have you seen WandaVision? You started watching WandaVision?
I have started watching WandaVision.
We should probably keep this as a spoiler-free podcast as much as possible, but
we'll keep it to your limited knowledge.
What a cool concept for a show, right? What a cool concept for a show. Yeah, my knowledge is definitely limited here for sure. Did not read the comics, but really cool show. Like, what do you think of WandaVision?
I love it. The MCU has been left in an odd, disheveled state now that we have had Endgame come and go, and it's like, what is to be of Marvel? Kind of like what we felt about Star Wars when the Skywalker saga came to a conclusion, and we're like, what's next? I know you're doing something, but like, what's next? And Disney is using a pretty cool, like, explosion, it feels like, that is Wanda and this idea of WandaVision. And I've done a lot of deep diving into this and like educating myself on the full comic universe around this. Holy shit. Go buy Disney stock right now, because if they have been making $1 billion per Marvel film that they produce, they are about to produce more content than any other studio has ever done before, and I don't trust anyone as much as I trust Disney to do it right. And they are going to do this right.
Yeah, I mean, not financial advice coming from somebody who's really biased, right? Mr. Disney fanboy over here.
Not me.
But
Not
I
me.
do agree, right? The explosion of content, right? It's like, okay, where is Star Wars going? It's like, well, where it's going is 10 separate content drops and telling like the rest of the story, right? And I think what I love about the MCU in particular is that it has the comic books to draw from. It has all these movies that do actually tie together, right? It has this universe that actually sort of like is iterative and builds on top of it. And it's like, we're watching WandaVision and it actually fits into the larger canon and lore and context of the whole thing. And it just never ceases to amaze me when you finally realize whatever it is. Like, I'm sure it's setting something up, or it's like, and we'll get to the end of the season and I'll be like, oh my God, it's like, that's the Green Lantern, right? I know that's DC, whatever. but you get my point, right? It's like, oh my God, it was actually the universe was on Orion's belt, and it was actually on the cat's collar the whole time, right? It's like,
yep.
I know something like that's coming, but I just don't know what it is.
It really makes what they've done so far with the Avengers feel small. What's coming? Because the things that they've alluded to, and there is so much symbolism in this show, it is unbelievable. And the fact that they started out with like this I Love Lucy black and white look, and they do it so flawlessly. Did you know that was actually recorded in front of a live studio audience? That was not a laugh track.
I did not, but I'm happy to hear that, because I think that I love I love real effects, right? I love when they build models and blow them up, or when there's real people laughing. I love real effects. So knowing that's actually in front of a live studio audience makes me love it even more.
And you like I was watching an interview with some of the actors, and they were talking about what it was like to be on a live set. Most of them have never done anything live before, and they have to go through and do this thing in front of people, and they're like, I'm nervous.
You mean these people are going to be here the whole time and are going to be watching?
And they're going to be laughing when I'm speaking?
Oh, they're going to see me mess up? All right. Sure, I guess we'll do that.
And even to that effect, they had to do all of the effects actually the same way that they did them back then. So there's a specific scene when Wanda has like a bunch of different utensils and items, and she's cooking dinner. And all of them are floating.
Yeah. Yep.
They actually did that. They put all of that was not CGI. That was all done the old school way. And how many companies would believe in the process enough to say, like, we want this to be as authentically I Love Lucy in like that 50s, 60s era, that they're going to let them spend all of this extra time to learn how to do this, unnecessarily do it, and then execute it over and over again in front of a live audience.
That's incredible. I had no idea.
Yeah.
How do they actually get all those things done? Because basically they're all like floating in the air, right?
Yep.
Because she's cooking dinner, and basically the entire kitchen is in the air and it's floating, and then it's just like there's some comedy going on around it, right? But how do they do that?
A bunch of sticks, like puppets. It was a bunch of puppets. So if you watch some of the older movies that came out from the 30s, 40s, and 50s, and those special effects that they had, very similar to that. Like a lot of wires, a lot of sticks, a lot of like optical illusions, playing with the camera and all that kind of stuff. Really, really cool. If you like that kind of stuff, or any sort of a film nerd, or like that appreciation for the old way of doing things as like a craftsman, go check out a couple of like the Screen Rant videos, and they've got some cool content around the backside of WandaVision.
Oh man, I do like Screen Rant. They make good videos, but I'll have to pay attention when because I've got some. I think the new episodes. When do they come out? Are they?
I believe they're Fridays.
Weekly?
They were on the same timeline as Mando.
Mando timing, got it. So I definitely missed last week's, so I'll have to keep an eye out for the real effects and see if I can spot some more, because I did not know that. I'm learning stuff right now.
It's so cool to think about that they're doing these old effects, and then at the other side of that, as you look at like Marvel, they're cutting the other edge of effects as well, and doing some of the craziest top of the line visual effects that you could absolutely imagine. With just watching Tony Stark's suits come up on him and turn him into Iron Man, those are like Transformers on steroids with a human model in the middle of it, and I can't even imagine what that begins to look like for them to animate that kind of thing. But they're doing that, and they're using sticks to hold up props to make them look like they're floating. So both edges of this, and I think that defines an extreme on both sides, an appreciation for the art and the craft, and you can see that in the way that they present this. And that curation isn't found everywhere, and not every single show that is coming out nowadays is an absolute banger like it used to be, when like House of Cards was the first one to really come out on Netflix that was like, oh my god, this thing's amazing. And now you get that every so often on Netflix. Yay, that's a good show. Most of the time you're just like, okay, that's content. They're trying, and they're just shotgun blasting because they don't know what's going to work next. But it feels like Disney's got a really focused, honed-in approach on these two universes, and they're going to just keep those going and going. We don't even know really what's coming down as much of the line for Marvel, because the reset still has to happen, and they have a lot to like launch out of this. Where Star Wars, The Mandalorian was that vessel that they could redefine kind of a direction that they want to tell more stories around, shooting out of the universe.
The reset. What do you mean by the reset?
Like
Are we talking about
Marvel
the
reset?
Snap.
The snap.
I don't know what the reset is.
Yeah,
what is the reset?
yeah, the reset, like when they snapped, because at the end of Endgame there was all the different heroes, and like Captain America is no longer going to be a part of it because he's old and all that kind of stuff.
Spoiler alert, bro!
Did you not watch this? It's been years. Goodness. After the credit scenes, you gotta watch these things.
I'm kidding, bro.
Good.
I'm kidding.
Good. Man, can't do that to me. These are big things to know. But
seriously, so is that the reset you were talking about?
Yeah, that idea of that reset, because I think Marvel is in a reset point because the past 10 years have been great building the universe to what it is with the Avengers, but that's so limiting to what the Marvel universe is. So the reset gives them the ability to reset actors, get rid of some of those heavyweights, kind of like a Robert Downey Jr. that's going to cost you $100 million per film nowadays because he's hot. But that reset in a lot of different ways allows them to explore different parts of the universe, which Marvel was one of the first pop culture like mega metaverses out there that I think you could really define. And it's cool to see Spider-Man play with that metaverse idea with their recent offerings. But this giant beast that is Marvel covers almost every facet of life from every culture imaginable, and knowing that Disney has that ability to just say, oh, well, we're gonna do this one, and we're gonna do this one, and there's this one that makes sense, and they can just start to connect the dots through their different storylines and weave them together. They've been doing that since the very, very first movie that they produced with Marvel in general, and then Disney comes in and kind of starts to intertwine everything even further. There's not many universes that I would appreciate that in, but it goes back to the same idea of almost like Roman and Greek gods being a metaverse and being what controlled like that upper theory of all the different things that need to go into everyday life happening. It feels like Marvel has that same ability to be that that grandiose, something bigger than us idea that includes all of us and ties us together in ways that not many other pieces of content can. I know there's one that you really like.
Did you just equate the Marvel Cinematic Universe to the Greek and Roman gods?
I did. Yeah. Do you want me to throw in like some Valhalla stuff in there too for Thor? Make sure we check all the boxes.
Yeah, I mean, I am a Dane, right? So we do gotta make sure I get go to Valhalla. So make sure that you bury me with a sword through my chest or whatever you're supposed to do.
Yes.
I watched The Last Kingdom, which great show. Watch The Last Kingdom if anybody out there hasn't seen it. The metaverse I'm excited about that's getting a reset, right? You hear about Harry Potter, huh? Ooh. Harry Potter might be coming into Reset World, right? We might be getting around generation number 2, and I believe J.K. Rowling loses the rights or something in 4 or 5 years, or some IP stuff lifts soon. And that could be a good time to reset that universe and also tell some other stories, because that's an amazing metaverse that is like only such a small part of it's been explored. And there's a lot of different directions I think they could take Harry Potter if they choose to sort of reset it or reinvent it.
This is one of the ones that I'm really excited for, because Harry Potter came at the end of the era of producing great books into movies.
Yep. And
now great books are turned into TV shows because it's the only proper way to do it. And I have always believed if they would have had a 8-season Harry Potter, it would have been perfect, and they could have milked that cow.
No.
So hard.
Let's go with like 7 seasons, because when Game of Thrones drug on for one too many seasons. Although I would probably argue that Game of Thrones needed another season, right? Instead of trying to do season 8 the way they did, they should have done like season 8 and 9, right? And give us like the I'm not as pissed off about what happened in Game of Thrones. I'm annoyed with how it happened and how fast it happened, but I think that I understand the arc. I just wish that they didn't just slam it all into like 6 episodes or whatever. But it's okay. The last 3 are like extended length. It's like, yeah, but there's 7 of them. You made me wait 18 months for this. What is this?
Yep.
She's murdering everybody? Why? All right, I'm sorry.
But Harry Potter, there was so much detail, and I like to compare Harry Potter and Ready Player One as adaptation comparisons.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
Harry Potter is true to the book and the story of the whole series. Ready Player One diverts greatly and is not as true to the original story behind the book. So if they take that same theory of being true to the book, there's a lot of detail that they just pruned all the way through the Harry Potter franchise to make it a little more lean and consumable, because they could have made 150 hours for the content and people would have ate it up even back then. Now, holy smokes,
people will still eat it up. I don't know what this like won't in the future. Like, just make it. Let's go. Yeah, right? Let's go. Churn it out. 10
to 20 episodes per season, 7 seasons. That would have been a great way to get through Harry and Hermione and Ron's adventures at Hogwarts. Each chapter, turn it into one of the episodes. Oh, it would have been beautiful. So the idea that I believe it's Universal currently that has all of that, because they've got it at Universal Studios in Orlando and Hollywood for the parks. Thinking that they could turn this into something more with the streaming verse that is out there now, that Disney has capitalized on, that almost every major studio out there that produces content that would normally be consumed in a movie theater is pumping things out to be streamed. And then they're also tacking on their TV services as that a la carte version of cable, like we've been looking at for a long time to come down the line. But now it's $10 every single month to have your subscription to your TV channels that you could have paid for on your cheaper now digital cable service. But I digress. The idea of these companies all having these platforms to release content on means that they need to add value to these platforms in ways that they didn't have to really produce content for before. Same Game Pass model, same Amazon Video model, same Netflix model. You need content to satisfy people, and if you don't have enough content, you won't satisfy people. And Disney kind of ran into that when Disney Plus first came out, and now they've got so much content coming down the line that I'll subscribe to Disney Plus for the next 10 years happily, because they have everything I want. Now when it comes down to a Netflix or an Amazon, I'll keep Amazon because it's got Prime attached to it. But when it comes to a Paramount, who just did their release of their streaming service, if there's the Universal version of that, which is technically Comcast overlapping there, these start to become harder to justify as a fan. Even HBO for me, which is AT&T and Time Warner. I turn HBO off every so often when there's not a show that's dragging me back to HBO, because I don't need that on all the time. It's not one that I have to have. So I really hope that this is the foundation for another have-to-have streaming service, reluctantly, because I don't want to have to pay for it. But I do think that this is one of those franchise materials, like it will sell consoles like a Zelda or a Halo would. This will move subscriptions like a Mandalorian has for Disney Plus.
You're over here talking about all these different streaming services, and I'm reflecting on my own mental processes about, a week or two ago when I'm scrolling through Netflix, thinking to myself, why do I still pay for Netflix? Right? Honestly, I'm actually getting to the point where I might actually cancel my Netflix. Like I right now I'm watching BoJack Horseman, which I don't know if you've seen BoJack. BoJack is funny. It makes me giggle. But beyond that, I've almost feel like I've watched all there is to watch that I care about, right? Until Ozark comes out for the final season, which that'll definitely bring me back 100% immediately. Yep. Right? I feel like Netflix is kind of in one of these like inter-seasonal lulls or something, and I'm just sort of like, whatever, right? And same thing with HBO for me. I've always was like, I'm coming back for Game of Thrones. I'm coming back for my thing, and when it's on, I'm there. When it's not, I'm gone. so I don't have HBO, but I'm getting a little bit of like subscription fatigue, I think, and I'm surprised that I'm even like really considering Netflix being on the block. Do you have a similar? What's your perspective on Netflix? Is it still in like your S tier, gotta have it, or are you wavering on there?
No, this is the same thing with me. It's down there near the bottom. It's that filler content right now, which honestly I'd rather pay for YouTube Red and use that as filler content because I feel like I get more out of it and it's more tailored to my likes and interests. Netflix has hit a bit of a critical mass problem with too much content, and I don't get what I want to see delivered to me regularly enough.
And it's hard to find things that I want to find, right? I even have a hard time finding movies that I want to watch on Netflix, right? It's hard enough just to get to the part where it's like show me only movies. I know I'm a boomer or whatever, I'm getting old. I can't click 3 buttons to the left, go down to the magnifying glass. But the point being, even when I get to the movie section, I look at all these movies, I think to myself, I don't want to watch any of this shit. There's a 3,000 movies on here. I don't want to watch any of them. What is wrong? Do you get that same thing? I don't understand. There's so much content. I don't want to watch any of it.
Not a single one. And I end up spending more time scrolling than I do actually watching anything at the end of the day. And it's really frustrating. Right? Like it's to the point where I almost just need a roulette wheel of what am I going to watch on Netflix today. Just give me an app that says all of the content available on Netflix now and give me a link to it when I spin that wheel. That's probably a better way for me to decide what to watch on Netflix because I could throw a dart at it and be just as happy as if I found something I enjoyed, which would normally be something that I probably have watched before because it's almost become a comfort to have Netflix as they continue to increase the price and just like turn that temperature up on the pot while we're cooking in here.
Yeah, it's like, but this is $14, bro. Come on now.
I mean, you want that 4K
anymore?
You want that 4K? Oh man, it's almost $20 now for that 4K.
Oh, dude, my TV is so old. Even if I bought 4K, I wouldn't be able to notice the difference, right?
You got that 1K.
It's got some K. I don't know how many Ks it's got. It's got at least 1, maybe 2. I don't know.
And I hope that we don't run into this problem where streaming becomes so expensive that it kind of phases itself out of an existence. Because if Netflix is inching towards $15 a month, is Disney Plus going to keep creeping a little bit further forward? Xbox Game Pass creeped a little bit further forward. All of these things seem like they're just slowly cranking up the dial on us so they can show a little bit more revenue to their investors every time that they have to go make another percentage or two, crank up the old.
I mean, it's okay that your costs go up a little bit every so often, right? Because stuff gets more expensive and all that, right? So
absolutely,
it's not just because they're greedy trying to make money, right? I'm just gonna throw my voice in there on that one, but I do understand the temperature is like it's just.
But at what point does it become more expensive to have the streaming services that you want every month than a subscription to Comcast and having a cable box again? Or is piracy going to be on the rise again because content is available, but there's still a paywall that is a lot harder to get past than that 99-cent click to buy that you had on iTunes back when it first came out, or that couple dollar subscription a month to stream a few things that were good on Netflix. If it means that I'm paying more for less quality, I don't want it. I would rather pay for something good, and that's where Disney Plus is winning my money for sure right now, because they're giving me quality content every time that I pay them. Even if there may be a lull, I still have content that I really enjoyed growing up versus just a hodgepodge of shit to fill Netflix with, just so they can say that they've got a billion options. I don't like that. I don't need that. And that's going to get cut. And when you look at one of these for Universal to have the Harry Potter franchise under, if that's creeping towards $15 a month, are you going to want to have that? So like, I really do believe we are going to see the next era of piracy from the millennial generation or millennial and Zoomer generation that does not want to pay subscription fees for content that is spaced out and drug out a little bit longer than it should be, and or subpar for what they're paying for. If they're looking for that one piece, that one song on that one album, you're going to see piracy coming back up again.
Maybe. I don't know. I think that there's a lesson in here though for anybody out there that is actually aspiring to make content and to like produce things, right? It's the quality does matter, and sometimes you do got to throw a bunch of spaghetti at the wall just to see what sticks. But at the end of the day, you're right. I've got 10 different streaming services, which mean I have 10 to the power of 10 options of what's going to scoop up my attention, right? Plus all the games I could play, plus maybe I could turn all the electronics off and like read a book or do a puzzle or something, right? And it's like, what is it that's gonna make me choose to like turn on YouTube to go to your stream every night at 6 o'clock? Like I don't know, right? There are some creators that like it's after work, it's 6:30, like I bet they're on. I'm gonna boom, that's right. It's just like they've won my attention somehow, and it's because they produce great content. I think they're funny. I vibe with them. But they're not the only person who I could be watching, right? It's like, how do you win that attention? And then you throw all these streaming services on top of it, and now they're all coming up with their own product. And yeah, you're exactly right. Next thing you know, you've got 10 services, $150 a month. Well, I thought we were trying to get away from this, right?
Yep.
The only one that is like, just let me buy my sports and don't black me out when I'm in the market. That, you know what I mean? Like, just let me watch my hometown team in my home market through my professional sports streaming package. NFL, NHL, NBA, MLB, all you fucks, okay? I am so annoyed by blackout rules. Man, this is turning into screaming at the next level. I apologize, everyone. I'm just all fired up tonight.
That was earlier in the week. Tomorrow you'll catch Torben and Amanda talking about all kinds of wonderful things on the flagship channel.
Hey, speaking of Torbino, do we want to let the people know who's coming on the show next week?
Yeah, our fearless leader here at Next Level, we've got Torben coming on as a guest, kind of talking about what Next Level is and, content. He's pretty good at creating content. He does it for a day job. He curates content creators, which is aka herding cats most days. So it's really fun to talk to Torben. So if you guys watch us and you don't watch the other Next Level shows, you'll get an opportunity to see a little bit of what Torben brings to the zaniness that is the Next Level talk show that him and Amanda host on Fridays.
It'll be a fun one. That's for sure.
Well, I think this brings us to the close of this episode of Theorycrafting. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us again.
It always sneaks up on you.
I know, right? The music in my ears. We've gotten used to hearing that this is the end song, so we're here again.
The music in your. That's right. He's the producer. He gets the music. I don't get the music. Come on, bro.
We'll have to sync up the YouTube video next time. But it's just some nice chill step stuff, and I always love hanging out. And it's kind of a sad part of the show to come to when we do close and have to wait till next week to talk again and have some interaction with all of you. But thank you again for tuning in and enjoying this episode of Theorycrafting, where Mitch and I discuss all the Next Level things that are happening in our universe. And this month we're discussing content and you. So join us next week with host Torben for joining on Content and You. And thank you to our sponsors, Aver Media and Blue Microphone, for making Mitch and I look and sound as beautiful as we do. And on the dabbing note, that's it. We're leaving. Goodbye. See you next week.